Hi, I'm Mary Margaret Murphy, and I'm the Executive Director with Baby's Breath Canada. We're really excited today to be launching our Ask the Expert series. This series will host experts in their field throughout the rest of this year. This will allow you to ask questions, get to know these experts, and hopefully learn a little bit about what we do as far as Baby's Breath Canada goes, who we support, and who we help. So I'm really excited today to have our grief counselors here to answer a few questions. Hopefully, we'll get a chance to know them a little bit better. And at the end, um, we'll address any other questions that may come through. So joining me today is Alora Gartley. Hi, Alora. And Emily Pollock. Hi.
Hello.
Hello. So thank you for joining me today. I'm really excited that you could be here. I know you're busy. So we will get to, I have a few questions here for you, and we'll probably go back and forth. But the first question, Laura, we'll start with you, is tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I am a registered social worker. So I actually went to Brock for my undergraduate in psychology. And then after that, I went to Wilfrid Laurier to complete my master's of social work. I've been working in private practice for a few years now, doing some contract work for Baby's Breath. I specialize in trauma, grief, related mental health challenges such as anxiety, depression, and I work with people of all ages. And yeah, I love what I do, and I love my work with Baby's Breath. So if anybody has had the chance to work with me, I hope that we've had a good relationship, and I hope that you've enjoyed our work together.
Wonderful, thank you. And Emily is actually brand new to Baby's Breath. Our previous grief counselor, Sarah Hammond, a couple weeks ago asked to step back, and of course we respected her decision. And we were so fortunate to find someone right away. And Emily came on board literally last week. And so, Emily, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm also a social worker, and I've had the privilege of having a community partnership with Alora. And so I'm in private practice as well. And my clinical focus has actually really been about supporting people during the perinatal period. And so I've been in the field almost 15 years, but it was through my own journey that really sparked that passion in supporting people through the reproductive period and all of the ups and downs that come with it.
Wonderful. Well, and we're so glad, we're so thankful to have you helping us with our clients. So, Laura, I'm going to go back to you. Just quick question here as far as what is trauma and how is it connected to grief?
For sure. So trauma is really any kind of event that, most people actually do experience at different times in their lives. Sometimes it's as a child, sometimes it's as an adult. And what it does is it really overwhelms the brain's ability to cope with that situation at hand. And I would say trauma is one of the most common but most misunderstood issues that I actually see in private work. And it really weaves a web with grief and losing a child. And as Emily said, all of the ups and downs during the reproductive process can really, really be connected to trauma with respect to how it impacts the brain and the body and just the ability to cope with that.
Definitely. Emily, I'm going to throw the next question over to you. What do you suggest for people going through grief and trauma?
Well, I'm really big on the language of building your circle of support. And so when we look at a circle of support, it can be friends, it can be family, it can also be professionals or our healthcare team, right? And recognizing, sorry, I'm trying to position myself well here.
No worries.
But recognizing that people can also hold a different space for you. And so some people might be your emotional support through this, and other people might make a better practical support. And we all need to be able to identify and accept help when we need that. And so that practical support when you're going through grief and trauma can be someone making and dropping off meals, or someone doing some kind of act to help support you. so that you can hold that space to heal and do what you need to do, as well as, setting those boundaries around what you need from people, right? So
definitely.
That's one of my big kind of language around, is that circle of support.
I know, great suggestions. Now, Laura, I'm going to go back to you on this next question. Is there a time limit on grief? And the reason I ask is that we've had families reach out and say, it's been 25 years and I'm still grieving. And, I know what I say, but what would you say to someone about, if they ask, is there a time limit on grief?
Oh, I would say absolutely not. I've had people come to see me for private work, as you said, 25, even 50 years after, and trauma and mental health that we don't address, especially during the perinatal period, it can take years, right? And it just persists. So there's absolutely no timeline. There's no time limit. At any point, if you're finding trauma and grief is still impacting you the day of or 50 years later, it matters, right? And so no, there's no expectations around when you're expected to heal, and everything is an individual process.
Definitely. Emily, next question. So what can clients expect from a counseling session with you? And actually, Laura, I'm going to also ask you that question as well.
Sure. I'll let Emily go first.
Yes.
Thanks, Laura. So in terms of my session, I'm really client-led and holding the space of where you're at and what you need in the immediate time, right? So sometimes when I'm talking with people, they want to share their whole story and kind of talk a little bit around what's going on. Other people, depending on where they're at, need some crisis intervention because they feel like they have a lot of different things on their plate and they're not sure where to go or what to do or how to break it down. Especially with fresh losses, you're trying to communicate with family members, you're trying to communicate with healthcare, you're trying to communicate with having your own time off work. So there's so many different multitudes that it can feel really overwhelming with a lot on your plate. And so really, I'm very focused on meeting people where they're at and just following their lead in our sessions.
Perfect. Laura?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with what Emily said. My session will look very similar, very client-centered. So whatever our client is needing, I will absolutely meet you where you're at. I like to think I offer a very validating, normalizing, compassionate approach, no judgment at all. I have lived experience myself, so knowing that, I think it really can just open up that there are many things you're going to be able to share in session, and you're only going to be met with a non-judgmental, compassionate approach. And as a social worker, my job is not just to listen and hold space for you, but also to be an advocate. So if you need me to be an advocate for you in the community or whatever processes you're going through within grief and trauma, I'm going to do that as well. And for some people, it's really just holding space, whereas others, they're really wanting to kind of dive into that trauma and process it. And as Emily said, no matter where you're at, we're going to meet there with you and offer that support that you're looking for.
Perfect. Emily, so what would you say to someone nervous about trying therapy or who has never tried therapy before?
Well, I think that, when we look at building that circle of support, it's a vulnerability that you're coming with when you're reaching out and trying to speak with someone. And, one of the things of being a therapist, I kind of say every good therapist has their own therapist. And knowing that, even us, the helper people, have our own special people that we reach out to. And I can tell you personally, for my own journey, is that when someone can feel like a good fit for me, it's kind of my reaching out and connecting and seeing, how I can relate and what my needs are, and if that person is able to meet those where you're at. So that's kind of my summary of what to expect is someone, Laura so graciously talked about first sessions and that being what it is, and knowing that there are people that can hold a space too.
Laura, would you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, Emily worded it great, and I might also add, many people who reach out for therapy, they often say they had my number for 2 weeks to a month, before they actually made that call. So you can really hear that there's a lot of apprehension, nervousness, maybe even shame, and not really sure what you're going to expect from the therapy process, or maybe you saw a therapist before and it wasn't a good fit, and that's okay too, right? Not every therapist you meet is going to be a great fit. I think it was my third therapist before I really found that right fit for me, and that's totally okay. So even if you've maybe struck out before, give it another shot if you can, right?
Exactly. This weekend is Father's Day. And for some, families, they're celebrating, getting together with family. And then there's families where, they've lost a baby. And sometimes I know men grieve differently. So, Laura, what would you say to someone or to, a guy that's listening to this that is going into Father's Day with dealing with the grief of losing a baby?
Yeah, of course. So holidays are always, I would say, one of the toughest times of the year. It's commonly a time that I see most clients kind of wanting to buff up their support. So that might mean you do want to spend the holiday with family, or that might mean you don't want to. So it is absolutely okay to not go to that event or not spend time with family if it's just going to be too upsetting for you. Not a problem at all. It's definitely a lot harder for men to seek that help. I often hear a lot of the fathers I support express that they feel like they have to be the strong one, and so their kind of feelings go on the back burner. But your feelings matter too, and as a male, it's totally okay to seek help. It's totally okay to cry, right? So if you're feeling like you even need like even just one session, reach out for support.
Definitely. Yeah. Emily, anything else to add to that?
Laura, you are just bang on with giving.
Yes.
It's really
She
nice
is.
that Laura and I have very kind of similar thoughts and messages around what this would be, and she said it so well. So, yeah,
Yes.
right.
Well,
Thank you.
great. Thank you. So for those people that are watching this, listening to this, Baby's Breath does provide up to 10 one-hour counseling sessions with yourself, Laura, or with Emily. So the service is completely free. There's no charge. Families generally reach out to us through our email address, info@babiesbreathcanada.ca. All the fundraising we do goes to fund this program. And I think it's such a valuable services, especially now considering that we're just kind of getting through a pandemic. Families were able to speak to you by phone in the comfort of their own home, and I'm sure that has made a huge difference for the families that you've helped. And I'll address this with Laura. Is there any one in particular that stood out from others that in the help that they received, or just the journey that they were on?
I mean, I wouldn't say there's any session in particular or any type of clientele I've supported that stands out. I mean, each trauma is so unique, so it's really difficult to say one more so than another. I mean, every story is like so important in it, I really think that Baby's Breath does a really good job advocating, so that's really nice, because no matter what your story or your grief, whether it was yesterday or 10 years ago, Baby's Breath will support you. So I think that's kind of the important thing.
It's true.
Is that no matter what your story is, it does count. And a very common thing I hear from a lot of survivors is that they feel like their story doesn't matter or somebody else has it worse, when each story is so unique and so valid. So please reach out if you need help.
Yes. Well, and and I know there's been many times where you've reached out and said, you know what, they really need more help. Can we go beyond the 10 sessions? And I will never say no. Like, if you need help, we're here to help. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So I want to thank Laura and Emily for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking time. Our next session is Thursday, July 16th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have Allison Napier. She is a death doula. So I'm really excited to have a chat with her and learn what she does and how she helps people through the dealing with death. So stay tuned. Thank you for joining me today. It was great seeing you too. And again, take care.
Thanks so much, Mary Margaret.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Emily.
Thanks.